Who's the most overrated person in history? Tutankhamun. He is the most well-known pharaoh together with Cleopatra 7, but he did literally nothing and died aged 18. He didn't even rule over Egypt a full year before he died, but everyone knows about him. His grave has been of huge importance to us understanding ancient Egypt, but he himself is way more famous than he should be. Amenhotep III, Thutmose IV, Akhenaten and Hatshepsut are all more deserving of the fame Tutankhamun has. His dad is way more interesting. Jebediah Springfield, only famous for misreading the Bible. Paul Revere gets almost all credit for warning of the British invasion, while really he rode about 12.5 miles in secrecy. Israel Basile rode about 345 miles in just 4.5 days, screaming the whole way. Even a 16-year-old girl named Sybil Ludington rode 40 miles raising heck. Pretty badass for 1777. Paul Revere was important to American history, but his claim to fame is definitely overrated. The reason Paul Revere gets all the credit is because the dude was famous before he made his ride. He wasn't just a silversmith in Boston, he was the most famous silversmith in America. People didn't really know Israel or Sybil, but when Paul Revere came knocking on doors, it would be the equivalent of an A-list Hollywood actor knocking on random people's doors. The news spread like wildfire. Why is Dwayne Johnson Mall walking through my neighborhood yelling about the British? The Pringles man. He's not even a Pringle. Big if true. Mary Baker Eddy, founder of the Christian Science Church, which is not Christian or scientific, founded a religion based on her idea that illness is unreal. You can pray your way to healing, and if you can't, you must not be spiritual enough. Then she died of pneumonia, but people still fall for her cult. Following her has killed several of my family members prematurely, and will take more of them, I'm sure, because they didn't believe in medical science. So for me, she is the most overrated person in history, for sure. Rasputin. He's more popular abroad than in Russia, mostly thanks to that old song and a few creepy photos. Rara Rasputin, Russia's greeted love machine. Mihai Eminescu, a Romanian poet. Every literature teacher you will ever meet in Romania will be kissing his ass, hailing him as the only good poet we ever had. Everyone else is trash. Only Eminescu is worthy of attention. He was a very talented man, yes, but also an extremely pretentious duck boy of the everyone else is stupid, I'm the only smart one mentality. I was so ducking tired of studying him all of high school, and every other writer in existence being compared to him. It made me hate poetry as a whole. All the Kardashians, I'm sorry, but duck them. I like Garrick. Gul Dukat was a prick, but he had his good qualities. Gul Dukat is the most perfect example in all fiction of no one is the bad guy of their own story. He really believes the bull he spews. Guy was literal head of a slave state, and really deep down thought he was a benevolent ruler. He knocked up a local, while presumably cheating on his wife back home, but he still thinks he was a good husband and father. Hey, where is your ape child? OC has been sold as a slave for the past decade. He led his entire civilization into ruin then, when it was clear he announces that he was chosen by God to become a terrorist, and the entire time, with every bloody purge, with every rape, with every abandoned family member, with every betrayed person, with every act of bloodthirsty murder, he still thinks he is the good guy. It boggles the mind. Most people feel bad when they take a ketchup packet they really didn't need back home from the mega corporation, or don't sort their recycling perfectly. This is obviously really local, but Kim Il-sung. The North Koreans absolutely worship him, and that dude is still ducking his country over almost 30 years after he died. To be honest, ducking over a country 30 years after death is still a legacy to me. Overrated means being more meh rather than being worse. Kofi Annan, General Secretary of United Nations, sitting on his ass while the Hutus butchered 800,000 Tutsis in Rwanda. From what I understand, the genocide was in 94 and Kofi Annan became XOUN in 97. I don't really see how that's his fault then. Edit. Kofi Annan was the head of UN peacekeeping in 1994, not the General Secretary. He therefore still bears significant responsibility due to inaction, but the comment above is inaccurate. Source link. Hitler. Sure, everyone know he is evil, but somehow he gets credit for being economic and military genius. He was not. He ducked up German economy while showing short-term profit doing an economic equivalent of slaughtering 100% of cows on a milk farm. Then he gambled by invading neighboring countries to plunder them and make up shortfall of German economy. This gamble held up only for so long and eventually his bluff was called. Nothing genius or smart about any of this. Isn't there a theory the Allies didn't try to assassinate him for fear that someone smarter would end up in charge? Bill Burr has a great bit in which he rants how overrated Steve Jobs was, and I kind of agree. Not just about Jobs, but most famous scientists like Elon Musk, etc., who claim they do all the heavy lifting, but in reality tell other, more capable individuals to bring their creative ideas and make them a reality. For a second I thought that you are saying Bill Burr, and I was about to lose my mind. Love that ginger bastard. I heard Dr. Seuss cheated on his lady while she was dealing with cancer. That's cold, Seuss. Cold. Don't read his wife's suicide note. It's sad as duck. Jeff Koons. The most expensive living artist in history. Proof that some of the most stupid and tasteless people in the world are also amongst the richest. Gandhi. Dude had very little to do with India getting its independence. Pretty sure if World War II ended quickly or hadn't happened at all, he could have gone with his protests for another 100 years with no avail. He gets too much credit for the actual hard work done by others. His narrative overshadows so many of the freedom fighters that got so much shit done. The ones who actually took up arms and fought. Your mom. Every single day, people say your mom and I ducked your mom, like it's some big accomplishment. But who TF even is she? Kevin Durant. Waits for him to respond on Twitter. Conor McGregor. Al Sharpton. Elvis is a red one, loved by many still to this day, but no one brings up his weird things with young girls, like 14-year-olds. Grosses me out to be honest. Edison. Duck that guy. He was an asshole and he didn't invent anything. His hired team did. And the GD light bulb. He bought a patent and had his team develop one that would burn out, so we would have to continuously buy more power lines. Tulsa would have provided free energy to the entire planet, but Edison cut the funding because they couldn't charge us by the unit with wireless energy systems. Seriously, one of the worst humans ever to exist. Oh yeah, and he electrocuted animals in public to defend DC, and then proceeded to profit from AgTech when he lost that battle. Tesla's wireless energy idea was a pipe dream at best and a straight up scam at worst. Light, and the whole electromagnetic spectrum, disperse relative to the inverse square. As distance increases, the lost energy scales so quickly that wireless power over more than a few millimeters is not practical. It's why wireless chargers require physical contact with the device. If you used a transmitter with enough juice to charge your phone anywhere in a room, your skin would start to cook like you were in a microwave, but hey, your phone would be charged. It's also the same law that causes radio stations to have a limited range get too far from the broadcaster, and the signal is so decayed that it's indistinguishable from cosmic background radiation. I'm not saying Edison wasn't scummy, but Tesla's ideas about global wireless power are solidly in the realm of science fiction based off what we know today about physics. Christopher Columbus was a gigantic piece of shit and a terrible sailor. Not only that, his crew wasn't even the first European group to see North America. The Vikings beat them by hundreds of years. Any Kardashian. John F. Kennedy. He was mostly style over substance. Ted Sorensen secretly wrote profiles in courage for him, even though Kennedy took the credit and Nobel Prize for it. With the exception of the Peace Corps, he also did not have any legislative achievements, and were it not for the fact he had a tragic death, I doubt he would have been as highly regarded. His successor Lyndon Johnson was able to get most of Kennedy's legislative agenda passed, and he did all within a year of becoming president. Beyoncé. Thank you. She is a performer, not an artist. Overrated as duck. In Sweden we have Gustav Vasa, the founder of Sweden, who saved Sweden from the Danish. He was really a big ducking dick who were the reason of the rebellions. One of them almost worked. Al Sharpton. The man was caught in a complete hoax in the 80s and the media still afford him credibility. Listen to his radio show. This guy purports to be a reverend and an attorney and can't get out 2 paragraphs without mangling his English. And no, I'm not against any particular race or party or whatever. I've heard many pop tell me he is an embarrassment. Elon Musk. As an astronomy nut, I can confirm that no one in the space community actually likes Elon Musk. We merely tolerate him because he's our best chance at stepping on Mars before we die. Donald Trump. Literally everything the man has ever touched has died, yet he still has an astonishing fan base. Che Guevara. Homophobe and murderous monster of a man. Don't know why people glorify him so much. All he was is Castro's bloodhound at best. John Wayne. I don't know much about the guy, but I watch his movies often because a client that I take care of watches his movies a lot. So I see the way how he acts. And he literally acts the same in every movie, the monotone voice. Always playing a cowboy or marine. I have yet to see a movie where he plays something else. Also, most of the actresses in his movies do a far better job of acting than he did. Movies used to be much more about types and playing a specific character archetype, rather than today where we want them to transform into the character. You'd find someone you knew could play the marine or the cowboy or whatever and cast them. Or during the studio system, which was beginning to end when Wayne was starting, you'd put them in dozens of things, many movies a year, playing basically the same role with a different plot, different co-stars. Actors were as much tradesmen as artists. In a lot of ways. Sometimes you hire an architect to design a house as the expression of something greater, an artistic achievement. Falling water. Sometimes you hire the local guy who's built dozens of them before to build you just what he made the last time. Mother Teresa has got to be up there. Link. Too long didn't read version. She ran a hospice, not a hospital, and was heavily limited both financially and legally. Things like painkillers and other medicines were not available. As for her having better medical treatment, that was against her will, and she had to be forced. I love how popular this post got. It's good to see people combating misinformation. Ernesto Che Guevara. Reagan smash. Reaganomics. That might be when democracy lost its soul to capitalism. Thomas Edison. Stole patents. Suppressed Nikola Tesla. Lied. Cheated. Stole. He should be wiped from the history books. He is the worst of the worst. Carol Malone impregnated a 14-year-old. Winston Churchill, a genocide here and there in Africa. Christopher Columbus led to genocide of 165 million people in America and Latin America. I read Carol Malone impregnated a 14-year-old Winston Churchill and was like, what? Me. Christopher Columbus. Not the rest of the Beatles, but just John Lennon post 1966. He just became a negligent asshole, not to mention the banshee of a wife he had. Helen of Troy. She was 11. Chuck Norris. I don't understand the hype with him. He is literally just another actor. There are plenty of other top-notch actors and actresses, yet they are nowhere near the all-impressive Chuck Norris. Karl Marx. Winston Churchill. Eulogized in the UK, but he was responsible for sending the black and tans into Ireland. Allowed the Bengal famine to happen as a policy in India. A casual racist and an enthusiastic supporter of concentration camps for Boers on South Africa. Jack the Ripper. He killed some prostitutes, so what? Everyone remembers that one guy just cause. There has been loads of people killed 5 times more than him, and you wouldn't know them. I'd have to say Columbus for reasons that are obvious to most. Arguably Chairman Mao or Mussolini, as they are both worshipped by a large number of people to this day in their respective countries, despite the rest of the world realizing that they were ducked up and largely incompetent. Yeah, Mao was a decent commander, but he was incompetent at everything else. Perhaps Hitler. People mostly admit he was ducked, but many are under the impression he was some sort of tactical, political and economic genius at the same time, when he wasn't any of those things. He was just an angry racist with no morality to speak of, which allowed him to burn down the Reichstag and lie about it for power. Elvis, he got famous by playing other people's music, with the only notable claim to fame being that he was a good-looking white guy. He is now revered as a god, but he was kind of shite compared to many of the other musical greats. Nelson Mandela. As a South African, I know how people from other countries talk about him like he's the second coming of Christ or whatever, but dude, all he did was spend 27 years in jail, got out, became president after apartheid ended, which he helped contribute, and then kinda chilled and did some celebrity type shit after his presidency ended. How you guys the world allowed him to become such a prominent figure still baffles me to this day. I still think he's a great person, but sometimes feel like the world saw him differently to how we did. Super unpopular opinion here, but Princess Diana. Not saying she was a bad person or anything, and I get that within the context of the British royal family she was special for how she connected with the public. But it's weird to me how she is almost deified and treated like some saint. It's not wrong to like her, but the Diana obsession is out of proportion to the reality of who she was and how she actually lived.